I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's get started. So, hello everyone. We're really excited that you all joined us for tonight's virtual event. We know that evenings aren't always the easiest, especially when you have little ones and busy lives and with spring here. But tonight's presentation is everyday tips for talking to your child, and it's going to be full of really great information. My name is Nicole Brogdon. I'm the Family Support Coordinator for the Southern Region. I also have my counterparts here with me, and we're all here to support Kayley Myers. But before I jump in, I just want to let you know that this presentation is being recorded. You probably got the message. So that way we can use it as a resource for other families who maybe weren't able to join us tonight. And this recording link and all of the resources and the PowerPoint presentation will be emailed out to you next week. We're going to send a recap newsletter from the whole week, all the presentations we've done, and send out all of those resources. But just, I'm sure you are all aware at this point, but Early Intervention Week is celebrated every year. It's typically during the third week of May. And this year we were so excited to have um, Governor Murphy's office actually grant us an official proclamation to recognize Early Intervention Week this year. It's been a couple years that it's been official, but this year it was. Um, and really, Early Intervention Week is just meant to recognize all the amazing caregivers of children in early intervention, the amazing children, all that they learn, and all that they're able to, learn and develop as they grow. And also a shout out to all the amazing professionals in the field that really help those children and the families to thrive. So this year, our theme is Stronger Together, joining hands to empower every family. And we believe that working hand in hand with families, caregivers, and the communities, we can provide the strength, resources, and encouragement needed to help every child thrive. So I want to jump over to Kayley Mayer. She is the program coordinator and teacher of the deaf at Sound Start Babies. She has been working with families in early intervention for 15 years and is passionate about the power of the family and everyday routines in helping babies and toddlers reach their full potential. So I will hand it over to you. Thanks for being
Thanks,
here.
Nicole. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. As Nicole said, I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of eat, sleep, and breathe this. And so I'm excited to share this information with you all. And hopefully it's things that you can just start using right away, really practical things. So my background is that I'm a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, but I also have certifications in early childhood education and elementary education. I was born and raised here in New Jersey. I went to the College of New Jersey and received my degrees from there. I started working at Sound Start Babies in 2010. We are a program for kids with hearing loss. We provide services in homes. We have a nursery program and also do telehealth services. And I personally have experience both in the classroom, but also doing DI and family training in both home-based and telehealth places. And I'm on the initial evaluation team. So if you've had an initial evaluation and you had two people come to your house to evaluate your child in the beginning, I'm one of those people sometimes. And so I find a lot of joy in seeing the kids when they enter early intervention, but then where they end up when they are graduating from early intervention. So really quick, I just wanted to talk about the WH questions that we're going to cover today. So first is who. And as Nicole said, one of the themes of early intervention and early intervention week is being stronger together. And I really believe that the parent and caregivers that are with their children all day, every day, are the ones that have this power to make this really great change. We don't want to rely just on the times when a child's receiving early intervention services. And so you don't really need a fancy education, and we hope that you can use these things absolutely right away. Most of the things I'm going to share with you today do not require any sort of special materials. There's one slide that I will make some suggestions if you're interested, but otherwise it's going to be using things that you can have in your home already. The tools that you need are really just the toys that you might have in your house. And we as practitioners try to ditch the bag and use things that you have in your homes every day that your kids are interested in and that you use every day, because then you're more likely to implement these activities. So I'm going to try to, I want this to be interactive. So if you're interested in throwing a favorite toy that your child has or any child-safe household objects they like to play with into the chat, I'm happy to kind of weave those into the presentation and maybe give you some ideas of how these strategies work with items that you have in your home. In addition, you're already here because you know that early intervention is important, but you might not really understand why it's so important. A lot of research shows, excuse me, there's a critical window, sorry, of brain development that exists between birth and 3. And this is helpful for all children, regardless of their hearing status, whether they are presenting with a delay or they have no delays at all. And these strategies will even be helpful for some children that are older than 3. And children can usually do manual signs before they can talk. So signs can be a great option for all families, even if their child doesn't have hearing loss. And we know that language-rich environments are predictors of future success across all areas of development. So it doesn't only help communication, it helps their social emotional skills, it helps their cognition. It can even help them motivate to work toward outcomes that you're targeting for their gross and fine motor and adaptive skills. So let's get started. And for each of the strategies, I'm also going to show you some signs that you can use that are related to each of them. So the first tip that I have for you is try to limit screen time. You may be aware that the American Academy of Pediatrics suggest video chatting would be different, and then only up to about an hour of high quality programming for children 2 to 5. And I know that there's reality versus ideals, and I'm not saying that it's possible to always have the screen off, but I think by limiting it, it gives you more opportunities to do some of the activities that I'm going to talk about today. And that will really open the door because the children will be more likely to interact or learn to play independently and spend less time in front of the TV. And so some things that you can do instead of being outside would be play, eat when we're sleeping, or go outside. And so I'm going to show you the signs for those words on the bottom of the screen. So the first one is play. So you're going to take your 2 hands and kind of make this hang loose symbol, and you're just going to shake them up and down like this. So play. And you can feel free to follow along on your end. Another sign that you can use is eat. So you just take your fingertips are all together here, and it's like you're bringing food to your mouth. Eat. Sleep. You make a closed eye motion and bring your hand down to from the top of your head to the center of your chin, like you're going to sleep. Sleep. And then outside, you're taking your hand almost like imagine an invisible wall or door that's here, and you're taking your hand in and bringing it out, outside. The next strategy is called wait time. So young children need time to process what has been said to them, and they're also still learning what an interaction is. So when we're having a conversation as adults, we kind of know what that pacing is. If I pause for a certain amount of time, you understand it's your turn to talk. Whereas if I continue talking, you know that there's not a break in my sentence, and it means that I'm still holding, the baton for this conversation. And so we suggest to parents to count to 10 slowly in your head when you expect your child to respond. And this can be the case when you're asking them a question like, what do you want to eat? Or do you want to go play outside? It could also be when you're just modeling a word for them. So instead of just saying like, say cow, just say the word and give them this expectant look, like raise your eyebrows, kind of lean into them, and exaggerate any social cues that you might use with an adult to indicate that you're waiting to hear what they have to say. Counting to 10 slowly in your head feels like a really long time, but it's actually the perfect amount of time for a baby or toddler brain to realize it's their turn to talk. And this is a great thing to practice when you want them to make requests for something. And so on the bottom of the screen, I have some words that kids can use to ask for help or make a specific request. And so I'll show you those now. The first one is more, which some of you may be familiar with. So it's the same hand shape that we do for eat, and we're going to use both hands and bring it to the center of the body. I'm also doing a lot of things up high so you can see where they are, but the more sign can be kind of down more toward your chest or your abdomen, but we're bringing both hands together and signing more. It's also worth mentioning that the same way that toddlers or babies might babble words and you kind of know what they're saying, but it's not a clear word, kids will also babble in sign language. So you may see some attempts at more, looking more like clapping, or you might see a pointer finger pointing to the middle of their palm as more. And so in the beginning, context is really key. So if you know that you're giving them a favorite food or a favorite activity, and they're just bringing their hands together, that may be their approximation for more. Another sign that they may use that might be helpful to use in your daily routines is help. So we're going to have a thumbs up with your dominant hand, and then your non-dominant hand is going to help the other hand up into the air. So it's going to push it upwards. Help. If a child is all done with something, or you want to indicate to them that you're all done with something, we just shake our two hands in the air like this, all done, all done. And then open kind of depends on the way you're using it. So we would use open this way, like a box, if we were opening like a lid to a container. We might use it this way if we're opening a door, so our hands resemble a door. And then we might use it this way to resemble opening a book. So it would depend on what the child's asking for or what you're modeling for them. But typically they're often asking to open a box or a container or a snack container. And so you'd probably be using this open. And I would always suggest pairing these signs with the word that you would like them to learn so that they can hear the word and see the word. And then you can even then show them the object so they can kind of get that multisensory experience and make a lot of connections and have a lot of exposures to the word that you are teaching them. The next is narrating or self-talk. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to mention things like adult word count, conversational turns, and these terms come from something that our program uses and a lot of programs use across the country called the LENA system, Lena. And later I'll give a link that you can click on when you get the PowerPoint to read a little bit more. But the Lena system is a system where children with families that would like to participate wear a small recorder in a shirt, and it records the child's environment and ultimately gives the practitioner or the agency that's working with a family some information about how many adult words are spoken, how many child vocalizations occur, conversational turns that happen. It gives information about the auditory environment, and this has driven a lot of research that shows the importance of a language-rich environment. And so one of the things that we like to target is more talking during the day to children. And this narrating and self-talk is one way, again, without materials, that you can easily increase your adult word count throughout the day. And it also exposes your children to vocabulary you might not typically use because you can talk about things that you're doing, not just about things that they are doing. So you can talk through processes, if you have to wash dishes or fold laundry, or you're going to wash your hands after changing a diaper, talking about all of those things out loud, like to say, okay, first, mama has to wash her hands and then we can go play outside, or first, mama has to put the dishes in the dishwasher. And so that allows you that allows your child to hear those vocabulary words of things in the environment, even if they're not toys or objects that they would be using. This is also a great opportunity to label thoughts and emotions. And so you can label what your child is exhibiting. So if they're feeling frustrated or they're throwing a tantrum because they can't have what they want, labeling for them that they're mad or frustrated or upset. And then also, if you're experiencing an emotion, you can talk through what you're feeling and thinking. And then that will help them to not only have more social emotional awareness, but when they're ready to do so, they will start to use those words and phrases themselves. So, some things that you might see in your environment that you could talk about would be trees. It's getting nice. So, hopefully, we're spending more time outside. So, for tree, you're going to have your arm up in the air and imagine your upper arm is the trunk, and then your hand is the tree, and you just kind of shake the tree like this tree. House is the shape of a house. So, we're going to build a roof and then sides. House. Car is like you're driving a car, so your hands are on the steering wheel. We probably need our shoes to go outside and look at the trees. So if you take your fists and put the thumb side of your fist together, this is shoes. And then time, and I added time on here because it can be paired with a lot of signs I've shown you so far. So you can say, it's time to put your shoes on, it's time to sleep, time to go outside, time to eat. And now, even just with two signs, you're putting together some phrases. So that can be a pretty versatile word for you to know and start to use in your daily routines with your kids. Next is reading books and singing songs. So some people, and even in initial evaluations, when we talk to families of really young children, like 3-month-olds or 4-month-olds, they don't feel like reading books is something that's super important for them to be doing because they don't feel like the baby really understands what's going on. This is a great time to start to make book reading a part of your routine. Even if your child doesn't seem to be engaged in the book, there are different books for different stages and ages. And so some high contrast books are a great option. Black and white books with big images. Those are great for infants and newborns because they like to look at the pictures and also then listen to your voice as you read the book. And this is the one slide that I said I would start to give some examples of materials. So I'll talk a little bit about some resources if you don't have a lot of books at home, but even if you only have a few books, they're really great because kids love repetition, so you can read them over and over again, and they love that, and they'll eventually start to read them themselves. We often suggest reading books and singing songs because when we're reading a book, our pitch and intonation changes a lot from natural conversation. So if you're reading Brown Bear, you're likely going, Brown Bear, what do you see? But if I just said that to you in a sentence, I probably wouldn't use that sing-song voice, but it's really great for the baby brain. They get really interested when you do things like that. And so reading books and singing songs makes that happen naturally. You could also walk around and narrate your day with a sing-song voice, but that might make you a little crazy. So this is definitely an easier strategy to do that with. And this is also if you happen to be on here and your child has hearing loss, it's even better for their auditory brain to hear words, pitches, and frequencies that we don't give them in everyday conversation. So it's an added bonus, but it really helps all children. So the words that I have on this slide for us to review are read. So you're going to put something, you're going to put your hand out in front of you like it's a piece of paper, and then two fingers in a V shape, almost like your eyes are scanning a page. So this is read. Then we talked about open earlier for opening a book. Open would just be one motion, and then we're going to do it twice for book. Book. Music, you're going to hold your arm out to the side, almost like you're holding a choir binder or sheets of music, and then use your other hand almost like you're turning the pages back and forth, but in a bit of a musical way. So just moving back and forth like this, music. And at least in my house, books and songs are favorites, so I often hear them followed up with again, again. And so I'll show you the sign for again. We're going to have one hand out in front of us take the other hand and kind of do a little bit of like a cup with it and flip it from facing up with your palm to having your hand in the middle of your open palm. Again, again. And don't forget, a lot of these words and signs can be paired with the other words and signs that we've gone over so far. So it's time to read or more books. There's a lot of possibilities here with pairing things. I want to expand upon this one a little bit because I do think it's such a versatile idea and there's a lot of resources as far as books and music go. So the first would be to use your local library if you don't have a lot of books at home or you're just the kind of person that doesn't like to have a lot of objects or clutter in your house and you like to rotate things. It's definitely a great opportunity for you and your child to go to a library and pick some books out that are of interest to them. You can also attend your local library story time to get some ideas and also just to use that as an opportunity for your child to hear a book being read as well. If you haven't heard of it before, there's a brand of books called Indestructibles, and they literally are indestructible. It's kind of like parachute, or if you think of an outdoor map material, you can't rip it. It's waterproof, so they can be washed. If a child puts it in their mouth or tries to tear a page out, they're not going to be able to do it. They're great to hand to your child in the car because, again, they can't really do anything to ruin it. And they're usually short. The pictures are really colorful and they have themes that kids love. And so that's one that I definitely recommend. You could even bring it in the bath with you because it's waterproof. Obviously, board books are great because again, they're a little bit more durable, not as durable as Indestructibles, but they're not paper pages that can be ripped. And lift the flat books are great because they're super interactive. You can also create experience books from personal experiences. This is especially helpful if you have to go to a lot of doctor's appointments. You can always prep your child and use books that are relevant to their experiences. So taking pictures of getting in the car or taking pictures of the doctor, taking pictures of the room and talking to them about it ahead of time. If you have to go back to the same office frequently, that's a great way to give them some exposure. Making books accessible is also really important. So if you do have them, put them in a basket on the floor, wherever their toys are, and encourage it to not just be something that you hold and read to them, but when they are playing independently, they can sit down and read the books themselves, and that helps them to be motivated a little bit more. Also, feel free to go off text. If the only books in your house, let's say you have like one older child and you maybe got rid of a bunch of your baby books, don't feel like you have to read every bit of word and text that's on a page. Just talk about the pictures. There's even some no text picture books that are a great option. You can just be talking about Wayne or what the weather looks like. You don't have to stick to the text that's on the page, especially if just labeling the items is your child's attention span at the moment. That's great. Don't feel like you have to go start to finish, read the whole story to be successful. Even if they just sit for a short period of time, they'll get more used to that and they can build up to reading a whole book. Family photos are also great. If you either want to print photos, you can get those photo albums at the dollar store where you just slide the pictures in, before we all had all of our live pictures on our cell phones. You can print the pictures out and put them in there and work on family member names that you don't see all the time. There's also a really great website called Artifact Uprising. It's a little pricey, but you can print your own board book with your own photos. They make great gifts, but you could also put pictures of your family in there. And kids really seem to love those. As far as songs, there's really no right way to do it. Sing whatever songs your family enjoys. So if there's cultural nursery rhymes that you have, or songs that your parents sang to you growing up, it's a great way to pass down favorites and traditions from different generations. And it doesn't have to be kids' songs or kids' music that you engage with. Like if we've all sang Wheels on the Bus and if we sing it one more time, we're going to go crazy. That's okay. You can sing a popular music song that's stuck in your head or, whatever comes to mind, and your children will grow to love the music that you love. It's also okay if you make it up. So if you just know the tune to Old MacDonald and whatever's going on in the moment, you want to sing something else to the tune of Old MacDonald, that's great. And it also makes the children be a little bit more aware, like, wait a second, that's a melody I recognize, but it's different words. So that's a great opportunity for them to recognize those differences and recognize the melodies they're familiar with. Songs you can pair with actions are great. It's kind of like sign language in a way, but more of a natural gesture or a kind of like a charade system. So if you want to do Itsy Bitsy Spider or Wheels on the Bus with the actions that go along with it, kids really love that too. And I promise your baby and toddler have no idea if you have a good voice or not. It's really just important to sing to them. So if you want to do that when no one else is around, that's totally fine. But they're not going to know if you're like hitting every pitch or if it's, if it's the perfect song. They're just going to be happy to hear your voice. The next one is called expansion and extension. So this is a great way if your child is kind of in the one word talking stage, just to add length and detail to their phrases and model longer phrases, which then supports them ultimately using longer phrases. So one of the ways that we do this a lot is adding a descriptor or like an adjective. So if your child says ball and they point to a ball that's in the room or outside, you can say, yes, it's a red ball. And you could put emphasis on that word that you're adding so that it is more auditorily interesting to them. And they're like, oh, that was not the word that I said. That was like an additional word. And it just makes something more specific and creates a more language rich phrase. So I put some colors on the bottom of the screen for us to do. And again, these are good options because you can also pair these signs with other signs that we've talked about, like green tree. So first, the sign for red, and I'm going to show you some initialized signs. So they use the sign for the letter that the color starts with. So if you cross your fingers, this is R. So R for red, we're going to take an R and come down from our chin. Red, red. Orange, O for orange, we're going to take it at the bottom of our chin and kind of squeeze like you're squeezing an orange. Orange. This is also the sign for the fruit. So bonus, that's a double meaning. Yellow, we're going to use the same hand shape we used for play. This is Y. And we're going to move it like this, yellow. So two hands for play, one hand for yellow. Green, this is G. So we have our first finger and our thumb almost like going to pinch something, but we keep them apart. And we're going to just move it up and down like we did yellow, green. Blue, we have a B for blue. And we're going to shake that just like we did the other colors. Purple, we have a P, which is kind of like you're scissoring your first and your middle finger and then putting your thumb kind of between. And we're going to do purple. And then we're going to take that same P and come back up where red was and do pink. I'm sure you'll get a lot of use out of whatever one of those is your child's favorite color. The next idea is teaching versus testing. So oftentimes, either because we're proud of what a child knows, or we kind of want to get a sense of what they know, we'll ask them a lot of questions like, what does the cow say? What color is this? And so what we can do is before you ask a question like that, try to turn it into a statement. And we call it teaching versus testing because it's not a test. We want to give opportunities to teach language to the children that we spend time with. So you can say things like, oh, I see a cow. The cow says moo, instead of saying, what animal is this? What does it say? And eventually, although it's not asking them a direct question, they are going to do what we do. They'll copy us. So the next time you open the book, if you do wait time, once you open the page, you might hear them say, I see cow or cow moo, because they heard you say those phrases that were a little bit longer. Oftentimes, when we ask questions, it limits their responses. So if we say, what color is this? We just get red. Or what does the cow say? We just get moo. But by giving them longer phrases to model their language after, we're ultimately going to get longer phrases from them. So, some animals that you might have in your songs that you're singing or books that you're reading are at the bottom of the page here. And I'll go over those with you. There's a great app called Spread the Signs, and you can download that onto your cell phone. It is a video dictionary, so you can just type in a word that you're hoping to sign at home, and it will give you someone a video of someone signing it. There's flags at the top. American Sign Language is not a universal language. There's different languages in each country. So make sure you're looking at the signs that are under the American flag if you're hoping to learn American Sign Language. And if you're curious about other countries, feel free to click through the flags at the top, but make sure that you're, for the purposes of this talk, that you're working on the American Sign Language. So we have cow. We're going to use that Y hand shape again, and we're going to put almost like the horns of a cow. We're going to put over on the side of our head and come up like this, cow. I also like to do the signs when I'm making the sound. So I might go moo. And that's a good way to pair the animal with the sound. Pig, we're going to have an open hand and we're just going to go like this. If you wiggle your fingers, it's the sign for dirty, which is why this is the sign for pig. Pig. Bird, we're going to have a little bird beak opening and closing. Dog is a little hard for me to show you, but you're going to slap your leg and then snap like you're calling the dog. So pat and snap, pat and snap. Cat, we're going to do some whiskers on the side of the face. So just pull away from your cheeks with your first finger and your thumb, like you're stroking a cat's whiskers. Next is serve and return. So this is a term that's used a lot in research and a lot of early childhood education, blog posts, and websites, because it's kind of like a serve and return if you think of a tennis match or volleyball or pickleball, whatever you're into. And if you think about it, a conversation is kind of like passing the ball back and forth. So I hit it to you, I say something, the ball gets on your side of the court, and then you hit it back to me. And the serve and return is really important. I had spoken earlier about the Lena system and what that has helped us to learn about children's environments and what could be helpful for them. One of the metrics that it measures, the most important is child adult interactions. So it's great if you're talking a lot, and it's great if your child is talking a lot, but it's really important that you're talking to each other. That is actually one of the most important predictors of future success. And so we want to encourage that interaction. And it really doesn't matter who initiates it. So if you initiate it, your child answers you, you talk back to them, that's great. Or if they talk first, then you talk and they talk again, that's awesome too. We just want to see that back and forth because that really helps their brain to understand those social cues and to have that engagement, which is super important. It's a great time to use your wait time strategy. So when you do want them to respond, remember that counting to 10 in your head, giving them that time to return the ball back to you in that tennis match. And so you can click on the link. I don't know, I don't think it would work right now because I'm using a PDF, but in the presentation that Nicole and the team will send out afterwards, you could click on this link or just go to lena.org if you wanted to check it out. There's a lot of great information about serve and return on there. In addition to having those conversations, if your baby is not at a point to have conversation, if they're not speaking yet, serve and return is also possible to start working on with actions and objects. So rolling a ball back and forth, or I shake a rattle, you shake a rattle, any sort of turn taking, even if it's nonverbal, is going to help the parts of the brain that ultimately become the verbal parts of the brain. So you can start doing that right away. Gail, the name of the app was called Spread the Signs. Yeah, thanks, Tanya. So some of the signs that would go along with that back and forth would be my turn. So we're gonna do this is mine and this is yours. So an open palm to my chest is mine, and an open palm out toward you is yours. This is turn, kind of like you're shifting your thumb toward the person whose turn it is. So I would say my turn or your turn. And I would kind of throw the conversation or the object or whatever back in your direction. My turn, your turn. The next suggestion or strategy is not really a strategy in and of itself. It's more information, but about languages. It's really important, and there could be mixed messages that you might have received in the past about what language you should be speaking to your child. And the most important thing is to use your native language. And this isn't going to be the same for everybody. Some homes have one parent, two parents that speak one language. Some parents have one parent and then grandparents that speak a different language, or two parents that speak different languages. And so this is going to look different in everyone's home. But what's most important is you speak in whatever language you know best and can provide a full language for your child. So if someone like handed me a baby and said, this baby needs to learn Spanish, so you have to talk to them in Spanish. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to provide much of a language-rich environment to them because my Spanish is pretty much limited to what I can speak to like an 18-month-old about things in their environment. And so you really want to use whatever language is going to be the one that you can label everything and talk about your emotions and talk about different kinds of topics with your child. Don't feel like you have to use a certain language because it's like a right thing to do. Really just use whatever you know best and feel most comfortable using. And now is really the best time to expose your child to multiple languages. So if you speak more than one language at home, don't feel like you have to just pick one. You can speak all of those languages to them. The brain, it's why children seem to learn language so easily, and for us adults, it just is so challenging. Their brains are very elastic when they're young, and so it's going to come easy to them. So don't worry about limiting the languages that you speak at home. So the people that might be speaking to the child are mom and dad. So I'm going to show you the signs for mom and for dad. Mom is a open hand like this down at your chin, mom. And then dad is up on your forehead, mom and dad. I know there's a lot of other caregivers, but I didn't know if I'd had time to show you brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousin, grandma, grandpa, and you may have certain words that you use at home for certain caregivers. So you might come up with specific signs for those people, but those would be great things that you could look up individually to make sure you cover everybody who's important in your child's life. The next strategy is called follow your child's lead. So if you've worked with toddlers, they typically have an agenda. They have something that they are hoping to do or accomplish. And why swim upstream when we have some opportunities to use whatever they are interested in to further the goals that we're hoping to get for them? So this is not going to be possible all the time. You can't always have ice cream for dinner or wear your raincoat all day in the house. So this is not going to always work. But if you can, try to focus on times when you can just play into what your child is already interested in. And having shared attention in an object or on a conversation is called joint attention. Begin doing this when your baby is, as soon as they're moving their eyes around, you can start having joint attention. So if the fan turns on and they look up at it, or the dog walks across the room, or they see, like a sunspot on the ceiling and they look at it, start talking about it. You're showing them that that is your conversation topic and you're both going to be attending to that. And that's a great thing to do for your baby's brain. So talking to them about what they see, talking about what they're looking at, talking about what they're doing. And this also becomes a little bit of an opportunity for that narrating and self-talk. So talking about what is occurring in the situation or what they've noticed, and then maybe asking them some questions like, what do you see? Or how does the wind feel if they seem to be noticing that the wind is blowing outside? So you can start to do some higher level things as your kids get older too. Personal interest is a natural motivator, right? So if I don't love basketball or don't know anything about basketball and somebody wants to come talk my ear off about basketball, I'm going to shut down pretty quick or not engage as much if someone's talking to me about a hobby or a sport or an interest that I have. And so our kids don't have a lot of like hobbies and sports when they're babies and toddlers, but we can work on their interests by looking at things that they're paying attention to or favorite toys that they like. And this is great for early intervention sessions, again, because instead of trying to work against the developmental stage that a toddler might be in, we can just go with them and they'll be more likely to practice these things if we show them how to do it with objects and toys that they really love. So some words that you might be able to use here is want. So we're going to take our hands, and again, I'm doing this a lot higher in my on my body than I would be. It'd probably be down more around like my waist or my just below my chest. So we're going to take our hands and we're going to pull our fingers in and toward our body like we're taking something we want. And then thank you is just taking your hand and bringing it out from your chin like this. Thank you. Thank you. If your child is bringing you a lot of objects, you might be saying thank you a lot, or they might be saying thank you to you because they've heard you say that over and over again. And so them bringing you an object is a great way to follow their lead and to start to have these conversations. The last strategy that I wanted to share with you today is sabotage. And that might sound a little silly to use that word when talking about working with babies and toddlers. And we don't want to set them up to fail. We want to set them up to succeed by making them work for something. And so oftentimes as parents or familiar caregivers, we know what our children want. So they may be just like reaching up to a cabinet that you know has the goldfish, and you just kind of like instinctively or kind of in your lack of sleep, fuzzy brain, just open up the cabinet and give them the goldfish. But it gives us an opportunity if we don't just do all of those things for them, for our expectations to be a little bit higher and for them to have to make a request. So you might want to put something out of reach to encourage them to use those request words or ask for something. And this could be for toys or it could be for, I would not say like meals, because if you know they'll have to eat regardless, I would use this more for snacks or things that you have a little bit more time or are not as urgent that you kind of get it on the table. This is something that you have to kind of work into your routine. You can also keep containers closed to target for them asking for help or to make them label an item. So, on purpose, if you were to like hand them a small bag of goldfish when you normally would just pop it open for them, they might take it for a second and look at it kind of like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't know how to open it. But then you can, if they go like, or open, that's a way for you to say, oh, you want the goldfish open? I can help you. We'll open the bag. And now we've just added a bunch of words to that exchange that would have just been down to zero if I had just popped the bag open and dumped it on the table or handed it to them. So you can do that with water cups. You can have like their shoes, fastened already, or just like hand them the socks. You can do things that are almost like silly that they're going to look at you and be like, this isn't right. I have to say something to show my caregiver that I'm not expecting them to do this or what I want them to do. You can also really take it to that silly level and say things like, oh, the cow says oink, and wait for your child to go, no, the cow says moo. So you can work that into the reading book strategy we talked about, or singing songs. You can, finish the phrase incorrectly and see if they call you out on it. And it can be a way to work some fun into the routines, but also make them work a little bit more toward those language goals. And we want to start with appropriate expectations so we don't have them get frustrated. So if right now your child's not pointing, just pointing what they want is going to be that thing that you're working towards. So we don't want to we're not going to like withhold something and expect them to say a word they haven't said before, but we do want to kind of gear them in the direction of the task or skill that we're hoping that they can level up to in this area. And hopefully they can start adding please to some of their phrases. And this would pair nicely with the request words we talked about earlier, like more please or open please, help please. And so please is an open hand on your chest going in a circle. Please, please. So I wanted to give a little bit of time in case anybody has any questions about anything that I shared with you, or if anything that I said, you know, wasn't clear or sounds difficult and you would like to hear some practical ways to make it happen, I would welcome that. If you would like to know more about our program or if you have questions for me, we have a website, an Instagram, a Facebook page, and my email address is on here. So I would love to hear from any of you, or especially if you want to hear more about the Lena system, I could nerd out and talk about that all day long. And I just appreciate you all being here, and your kids are all lucky to have you in their lives. And hopefully, these are things that you can use tonight at bedtime or tomorrow morning. But either way, I hope that they were helpful. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. I am going to stop the recording.